Hello again, this is Lazy Tech Gamer coming out with another video. And on this one, I want to touch on the CompTIA Security Plus certification and a way you can approach completing this exam within 30 days, although it's acceptable to do 45, 60, 90, whatever you're comfortable with. So for this certification, the current version that was released recently was the 601 version. I believe 501 is still being offered, but I'm not 100% on that. So first of all, let's talk about the rationale behind the method. To reinforce the material for me, I use a couple different resources. First, what I would suggest is if you go onto Amazon or whatever your preferred resource is, this is the book I used for 501. Again, I do know 601 is out now, and if you're planning to register for the 601, I would look to see if there's a version of 601 there, or if you want to do the 501, you can pick up this book, assuming the version of 501 is still available at this time. What I personally do, depending on how you want to approach this, some people, paperback's fine. I prefer Kindle. I actually have a cheap little Kindle device that I use, my purpose for using it is I have a hard time focusing and drowning out other outside noise. So to easily study specifically technical documents, I usually get Kindle versions, and I'll get like a little Kindle device or a little Kindle Fire, and I'll do text to speech with headphones so that when I'm reading through the material, it's actually reading it to me as well. So I'm hearing it as I'm visually seeing it, so that way I can more easily focus on the material that's in the book. Along with this, I would suggest other platforms such as Cybrary, or there's also other options as well. I personally, disclaimer, I do some volunteering with Cybrary, and I've been using Cybrary platform for quite some time. They actually do have, once you create an account with them, they do have a class for, which is about 45 hours worth of content. The one good thing about their platform is they offer visual labs, practice exams, and a lot of other material that can help supplement the information outside of just reading the book and preparing for it. Again, there are other options out there. This is just one of them. You can use whichever one you feel best. I just wouldn't depend on a book specifically to get you all the way there and as your only form of learning. Outside of that, and the book that I mentioned is by the author Darril Gibson, which he actually has a website about getting certified in 30 days, which is kind of what this is focused on, and basically the plan I try to use. On his site, he actually kind of has a plan laid out for a day-by-day study guide. This actual study guide, I've actually used it years ago, and I actually kind of do a modification of this in my own personal studies, and I've actually used this kind of rationale in multiple certifications I've gotten, including CISSP, Cybersecurity Analyst Plus, Project Plus, just multiple certifications using the same rationale. So basically what he suggests is if you kind of go through here, which again, all these are linked on the site, basically you start with the introduction, and then you do your beginning assessment, which is in the beginning of the book that I just referenced on Amazon. And then what I like to do is I kind of use this and I kind of copy this into a to-do document, which I kind of already started to do here, where literally a lot of this is just copy and paste, and I edited where, like, say, a part of keeping yourself accountable is you can kind of make your own, with a to-do list, you kind of make your own schedule to say, hey, I'm going to read so much a day, I'm going to do this much a day, and kind of make a schedule to where you can kind of get through all the material by the time you want to take your exam. So if, like, here I have, read introduction, do assessment exam, day 2 and 3, first days, read first chapter 1, day 3, read the second half of it, and then do the review questions and the review sections in the chapter. And then the day 4 and 5, you read, beginning of chapter 2, the rest of chapter 2, do the review questions, review the material. And then on the 5th day, you're basically reviewing all the chapter reviews, and you're doing the practice questions from those chapters, which majority of what he spells out here is basically you read 2 chapters over 4 days. On the 5th day, you kind of review the end material questions and everything like that, and then you kind of start it again. Do another 4 days worth of 2 chapters. On the last day of the chapters, you kind of review the practice questions, review everything, and then the next day, you're basically looking at all the questions and the review from all the chapters you've read collectively. So as time goes by, that particular day becomes more, but it's just a collective review, so you should be able to get it pretty quickly. Outside of using this, so again, what I normally do is when I create the to-do, this one I've only put a couple days, but you could say do this out for 30 days. And this is a 30 days, figuring you're going to read a half a chapter of the book every day. Even if you don't do this, you could modify this to whatever works as far as with your scheduling. You could say 30, 45, 60, 90. I wouldn't go anything over 90, honestly, if you want to kind of make sure the material is somewhat fresh in your mind. But you kind of just do this and then kind of keep yourself accountable. Go through here, set it up for the 30 days or so. Outside of this, again, what I would suggest is adding these little substeps. You could do is you could take, like, for example, like I said, if you choose Cyber as your platform, you can use any other video platform you want that may have supplemental data for you to go over as far as like videos, virtual labs, practice exams, some of that. And what I kind of do is, like, say I want to do it in 45 days. Take that 45 hours and do an hour a day. Add that supplement into what you're studying for, or you kind of do, honestly, for me, the video, the virtual labs, everything like that, I'm kind of doing whenever I have some spare time outside of the actual book material. The book material, because, reading can be a bit dry at times, that I want to set at getting a certain amount done. The video content, the virtual labs, you kind of go through as you would. So outside of doing the planning, again, also when you're doing the exam, I would suggest setting a date that you plan to do it. Now, the good thing about that is a lot of times once you send a date for an exam, it makes it a little more real than, like, I'm just going to take it in a couple months. And then you kind of keep pushing it. The good thing is once you set a date, you're a little more focused on getting through the material within that time. And the great thing is, even if you actually schedule your exam, once you've done that, you still have time up to, I think, 24 or 48 hours before the exam to push it down the road. So, like, say something happens, you can't take it that day, or you're not 100% prepared over the material, you can push it back a week or so. Me personally, when I do my layout for the number of days, what I actually like to do is I do my 30 days. I schedule it maybe 1 or 2 weeks after that 30 days, because what I like to do is on the last week or so of the material, I'm doing practice exams, seeing how well I'm doing that, using that to find out what are my gaps. And then, especially when we're more mobile, like if you're on Metro or, just as a more, couple minutes here and there thing, what I like to do is, if you're on Android, now there's multiple apps for this. I personally used this one previously when I was studying, where I use basically a memory bank of practice tests. And I kind of just go through this, because the good thing about using an app, like here's one for Android, here's the same one for iOS. The good thing about using these apps is you can kind of set up to where you can do like 10 questions at a time, 20 questions at a time. You can rotate to say only use questions I have not been asked, so you're not memorizing answers. But what I found that's really good about doing this consistently is that as you go through more and more and more questions, you'll start to find different questions where you're like, hey, I really don't know that, or I kind of just guessed, but I don't really have a good grasp of what it was asking outside of me just kind of guessing between two answers that maybe seem legitimate. And then that tells you, like, maybe I need to go back to those sections and then reread on that, get a better grasp of that, either through the videos that I'm using and or the book material. Outside of that, what I like to do, will state that I have volunteered with Cyber and I've been part of their platform for a while. So they do have practice exams as a part of so you have here, you have CompTIA practice exams. So I think you have 2 practice exams with them, which are a little more long form than, say, the mobile app. I heavily suggest you take those. Outside of that, like I said, I'm vaguely using this as an outline. I'm adding my own little tweaks to it. But again, I've used something similar to this for multiple certifications, Security Plus, Cybersecurity Analyst Plus. I've used it for CISSP, CCSP, and they've all done pretty well for me. If you have any questions, just let me know and hit the comments. Thank you.